Hi, this is Catherine Henry from Palpable Media. Thank you so much for joining us here today on Back to Business with XR for 2020. We're looking at tools that will help us better communicate, collaborate, and create new work. And so I know that in recent months, many people have been scrambling to new platforms like Zoom to quickly get up and going and get back to business with this contact-free reality. The challenge, of course, has been that most people have found out that these things are unwieldy. They're not really meant for the level of work and collaboration that we need to do today. They have flat screens. You're not able to share or really work together on these platforms, and so it's very hard to move business forward. 3D, of course, is the perfect environment for new collaboration tools that allow people to have a hands-on way of interacting not only with the tools themselves, but with each other. And so part of the series is to introduce you to new technologies and the people behind them, the leaders who are innovating this space. Today, I have the pleasure of being with Jacob Lowenstein from Spatial and David Niederhin of Scope AR, and they're going to talk to us about the different solutions that they have for working in a contact-free environment. So, by way of introduction, you should know that Spatial is a leader in 3D conferencing and collaboration across devices, which allows us to work, create, and communicate in a contact-free economy. And they're going to show us exactly some of the use cases so that you get a sense of what that can do. But first, we're going to speak with Scope AR's CEO, David Niederhin, who is himself an engineer and has worked in major industry, including Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and Toyota. And he brings to Scope AR, which is, I think, a very unique solution that allows us to integrate AR with plant maintenance, facilities management, commercial and residential maintenance and repair. And anyway, I'll let him tell us more about it, but it's really exciting and I'm glad to have him on board. Thank you so much for joining us, David.
Yeah, thanks, Catherine. I appreciate that. So probably maybe the best way is I have a bit of a presentation I can show while I'm talking a little bit through what we do. If that's okay, I'll share my screen.
Okay, sure.
All right.
It seems to have come. Just give us a moment. There you go.
Okay.
All right, you're on.
There we go. So yeah, thanks for the introduction. I'm one of the founders of Scope AR. So we're an augmented reality company, as you mentioned. Actually, we're based in several locations, but really what we're focused on is, just to your point, helping share expert knowledge, make anyone an instant expert. Just a little background on the company. We started in 2011, so definitely one of the pioneers of augmented reality in the industrial space for industrial applications. I don't think there was anyone really doing it before us in terms of using augmented reality to create work instructions. This is actually a photo that you're seeing on the screen from a large mining trade show in 2012 called MINExpo. We were doing some work at the time as a service company for organizations like Atlas Copco, and we did projects for Boeing and Toyota and so forth. At that point, augmented reality was really early. Organizations were just trying to figure out how they were going to potentially use technology like this moving forward to help scale their knowledge. What we recognized pretty quickly was that this was going to be something that was going to be used. Augmented reality was going to be a tool or a technology that was going to be adopted. Organizations were looking at it in how fast we actually start to engage in this type of technology. We turned kind of our work at that time from service work to creating products that we could be then more scalable to our customers. And that's really what we're focused on. Over the last number of years, we've really focused on those challenges that exist in specific industries, primarily around aerospace and defense, like CPG manufacturing, industrial equipment, medical device, those types of areas where there's sort of high value challenges. You've got diverse workforces that are located all over the world, and everybody has that same problem of dealing with an aging workforce, of dealing with turnover, of trying to have consistent expert knowledge that's delivered to workers wherever they might be. And currently, as we know, the current challenge with the COVID crisis has put an emphasis on that expert or on that remote support of workers, no matter where they are. So organizations are having fewer and fewer people inside the facilities. They're needing to make sure that work is being done properly. So how do they deliver that knowledge in a meaningful way where they can actually ensure workers are doing things properly, but also measure that it's being done properly? So that's what we're focused on currently under the current situation. This has been a very interesting last month. I think that the engagement in technologies like augmented reality have turned from a nice to have to a need to have. Like I said, as organizations are trying to figure out exactly how they're going to handle this changed environment that we're in today. So we essentially, from our standpoint and from the products we have, we actually accomplished this goal in terms of sharing expert knowledge in two different ways. The first way is through guided work instructions. So taking kind of those previously paper instructions, those 2D instructions, and delivering that knowledge through an augmented reality engagement. So workers can pick up their smartphones or their tablets, or wear glasses like, for example, the Microsoft HoloLens, and actually see those types of step-by-step instructions right in front of them locked onto the real world. So instead of handing someone a piece of paper, you can actually just show them what to do. We also do that through remote assistance, so real-time remote assistance. There's a lot of remote assistance tools that are out there now. There's different ways you can communicate. It's easy from something like FaceTime right through to a more immersive engagement in something like WorkLink, where you can call on experts, share your camera, share audio, but also add annotations like drawings and arrows and highlights, and then also combine that together with the work instructions. So I'm going to show you a little bit of a video to give you a sense of how that works in just a moment, just so you can see exactly from the end user's perspective, or the viewer's perspective, they're probably sitting there thinking, okay, exactly how does that work, right? So I'll show a video in just a moment. But like I said, we're really focused on those types of industries that have sort of high value propositions, big challenges, diverse workforce, typically in manufacturing and quality insurance. Training is becoming a very, very hot issue. Trying to figure out exactly how they're going to ensure that new employees are trained on the equipment as you have the changing workforce. And you can't just bring everyone together anymore. It's not a matter of flying people to the same place and saying that, on top of saving money, how do we actually do this training and make sure it's effective? As well as maintenance and field service. So looking at things like those manufacturing factories, those plants, equipment still needs to be maintained. There's scheduled maintenance, there's preventative maintenance, and there's downtime that they can't plan for. So how do you make sure you accomplish that, get it up and running fast as possible? From our product line, along with delivering those best practices, the power of what we deliver is actually the ability as well to create those instructions very easily. So WorkLink is an authoring software as well that you download onto your computer. So our customers, like Lockheed Martin as an example, take this software and very rapidly, without any coding or programming, build all of their own work instructions internally so that they can take their CAD models, create steps, create workflows, and just be able to make those accessible to the workers on whatever devices they have. So here's a short video that we'll play just to give you a sense of how it works. So you can kind of see firsthand. So an example, there's a piece of equipment that goes down. There's a worker that enters the facility. They've got probably some basic knowledge. They do the reboot, but it doesn't work. So now they need some help. They can pick up whatever device that they have. They can actually place a call to an expert. Okay, that expert is going to receive that call on, again, whatever device they have. Could be on their PC, could be on their tablet. And now they're seeing the video of that worker that's in the field. So along with talking to each other and sharing video, you can now annotate. And this is fairly common. I mean, everybody's seen videos about this. The power of WorkLink certainly is that those annotations stay locked to the real world in the video. So even when you put your device down and you pick it back up, that annotations, that content is going to stay where it's supposed to. So very, very easy to communicate, and you can add work instructions. So now we're going through step-by-step instructions that is actually pre-authored and showing the worker exactly what to do. So the expert's on one side of the call, the worker's on the other side, and this is footage that's taken right from actually the worker's device, showing exactly what needs to happen. So being able to annotate and add information on top of those step-by-step instructions is unique to WorkLink. There isn't anything else that does that, but very, very powerful experience. So that gives you a sense of the products that our customers are using. Customers like Unilever, for example, in several factories around the world have been looking at how they improve their training. They have digital factories, how they improve distribution of expert knowledge. We've done a number of tests in various factories with them in terms of remote assistance and work instructions. So reducing downtime, ensuring that workers have those best practices in front of them. So lots of data, lots of information. I mean, it's extremely important to make sure that you can show value in terms of engaging with these types of technologies. So selecting the use case is critical. This is another one of our customers, Lockheed Martin. So they're using augmented reality to reduce time that it takes and reduce errors in assembly. This is specifically of the Orion shuttle. So pretty basic task actually is putting fasteners on, but it's extremely critical that those fasteners go on in the right order and have the right torque setting. So instead of trying to translate paper instructions that you're looking at onto the real world, the worker can simply look at that real world. They can see that the red ones are set at one torque setting and the blue ones are set at another torque setting and purple ones are set at a different torque setting. So the worker can just walk through those and make sure that very easily they follow the proper instructions, and you can document they've done that properly through things like session recording or photos, and therefore make sure that that work's done properly. Okay. And again, Lockheed Martin, kind of one of our marquee customers. They have a lot of information that they're sharing publicly in terms of the improvements that they're seeing in some of the procedures that they're using work instructions for with augmented reality. It really is around translating those instructions onto the real world. So just so easy to look at the equipment, see what to do, and follow those instructions. You'd almost have to try to make a mistake. So that's a little bit about Scope AR and our product WorkLink. Really is about sort of that cycle of expertise, expert knowledge, in being able to, create content, make it available to a workforce on whatever device they have, capture the data and analytics, somebody that purpose that, maybe refine those instructions or connect to an expert for additional help. So that's a little bit about WorkLink, Catherine.
Great. Well, I was very impressed when I first had this demo a couple of weeks ago, because there are so many use cases for this, particularly for industry, as you pointed out. One of the things that I think is immediately obvious to those who are in industry is that it's tremendously risky and costly to train people, to upskill people, and also to have them out in the field. I know that in virtual reality has been used in oil and gas, and there are many instances where they would go with a pole, literally with a GoPro, and put it down in front. But it seems to me to be a real sort of a Scotch tape solution, whereas this is more comprehensive. My question for you is, talk about the time frame, because looking at the assets that you developed for this, for your clients, they seem to be rather involved. And a lot of people are thinking, I need this now. So talk to us about the time frame of developing a system like this for, let's say, plant or facilities maintenance, or even if it were, let's just say telecoms, where they have to do home visits. I mean, these days, it's a distance economy, so everybody needs this onboarded fast. So how do they do that?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's probably different stages to that, and it depends on the pain points of the customers and identifying the use cases that make the most sense, of course. In something like telcos, we know that during this crisis right now, those telcos cannot, the workers cannot enter the homes predominantly of customers. So they're finding new ways to engage the customers. The immediate reaction to that is, how does that worker support that homeowner, that customer, from outside of their home? Remote assistance is a very easy way to do that. So you don't necessarily have to start with the full comprehensive work instructions, but a telco worker could go place the equipment on the doorstep, go back into their vehicle, they could sit in the vehicle, customer takes the equipment inside, and now they have a call that's placed to the customer. And instead of just trying to talk them through that, the worker could draw arrows, could say this cable goes here, show them what to do. Extremely easy to follow because that content sticks to the object. So if they're connecting to a router, just show that worker or that homeowner what to do.
Could it potentially also be part of an exclusive app?
Can be, yeah. You can integrate. So, for example, integrations into customer apps is something that deep linking is something that we've tied into, or partner with organizations like ServiceMax and so forth. Those types of integrations are definitely possible. The power behind that, though, is that right now there's obviously sort of an immediate need to solve a problem today. Remote assistance is one way to do that, but that's sort of a knee-jerk reaction in terms of saying we need to solve that problem today. The part about work instructions is the planning for the future then. So moving forward, that same telco doesn't necessarily want the homeowner to have to do a call every single time to a technician or to their expert call center. So the next step is, okay, those instructions now come along with that router or that box inside the homeowner. The customer opens it up, they point their phone or their tablet at it, and it just opens up the right work instructions. It shows them where to place the cables on that router, almost impossible to make a mistake. And if they need to, now call the technician for some added support. So there's sort of that step one of the immediate need, and step two of how do you plan for the future and make sure that you're able to support your customers in a more scalable way. We're seeing also the reverse in some cases. So some organizations, a company like Agreco is, for example, using work instructions first because they're trying to solve the training issue. How do we train our employees when we used to bring them all together to one place and now we can't do that? If you can take augmented reality, place that content in a fully holographic mode on the ground, even if the worker doesn't have the equipment, and teach them the steps around it, so when they go to the equipment, they can just overlay that on top of the equipment. Now they've solved the training issue in terms of immediacy, saving time, saving money, while also then saying the next step is when they're out there, now they can use remote assistance to call somebody. So it really is just a combined effort between those two in terms of what comes first. It comes down to use case and priority.
Tell me this, a lot of people think immediately about virtual reality for training and upskilling, and they might even suggest that we don't yet, while we have multiple HMDs or headsets for virtual reality, there really hasn't evolved one specific platform for virtual reality. The HoloLens 2, we've still been waiting for it for a couple of years, and Magic Leap is fantastic, but it seems to be still in early stages. What would you say to the suggestion?
Well, I think it honestly comes down again to use case. So in some cases, headsets would be tremendously valuable. So Lockheed Martin, for example, working on big equipment like the Orion shuttle, they really want to have a hands-free environment. Now, their technicians are going to take the time to learn how to use the HoloLens, and that's the device they're using. They're going to take the time to say, you know what, it's not perfect yet, but the time that we're saving, the time that we're investing into the worker learning how to use that versus the time we're saving is not even close. So they're okay with that. In other use cases, workers may not be at the point where they want to learn, or maybe they don't have access to wearables. So they need to be able to access the same instructions on their tablets, their smartphones, devices that they're already familiar with. So the focus for us to our customers is develop the instructions, be able to use the tools to communicate on whatever device you have available. So absolutely be looking at things like the HoloLens and HoloLens 2 in our opinion, but also make it available on devices that people have in their hands today and are familiar with. The HoloLens 2, I mean, we have them, we support them. It really is.
You do?
Oh yeah, it's a great device. If our customers need to contact us, yeah.
Okay, a lot of people are saying that, like so many of the headsets, whether it's the Quest or the HoloLens 2, that it's really hard to get a hold of them. And that's one of the friction points that so much of the industry is facing, is inaccessibility of the key components that allow us to move forward. But there are so many very valuable platforms such as yours that I think can make a huge and immediate impact on business and getting back to business no matter where you are. I want to take more questions at the end of this. For those of you watching on LinkedIn, please make sure to start adding your questions to our timeline. In the meanwhile, David, thank you so much. I'm going to switch you over to Jacob Lowenstein and bring him into the conversation. Jacob, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to hear about your new platform. Now, you are, as I said, a leader in 3D conferencing and communications across devices, and I think that's something that's relatively unique. So many people are struggling with the Zoom calls and everything else because it really is inadequate for communications. Can you talk to us about some of the use cases that you've had with companies that you've worked with? I know that you've been experiencing exponential growth, so congratulations. Tell us about, what people find attractive about your platform and the solutions that you're able to solve.
Totally. I mean, to put it very succinctly, right? And again, thank you for having me. This is awesome. Essentially we're solving, two problems in tandem, right? Which is we're solving the problem of isolation and the breakdown of trust between people that need to work together that are separated from one another. And we're solving all the friction that results in how people try to actually work together when they're not together, right? And so if you think about it, I mean, this is a little bit pre-COVID, but video conferencing, you're just a little tile on a screen. It feels very impersonal. You can't do all that much. And so the solution that we've generally had, particularly for knowledge workers, is getting on planes or trains, which is expensive and exhausting and very impractical. And so the idea behind Spatial is how can we really essentially give you the superpowers you need to work together and connect and build relationships without really needing to ever get on a plane ever again. And so that's the goal. In terms of use cases, there are really three big ones right now. And they are essentially what we call like 3D reviews or design reviews. They are, team planning meetings or stand-ups, and they're training and lectures, right? So on the design review use case, right? I mean, look at, we've shown some of our work with Mattel. Mattel uses us to facilitate toy design across sites, on both the West Coast and the East Coast, and to work with their manufacturing in China to make sure that what they designed was actually built. So they can look at something in 3D as they design it, and then look at the actual end product and compare the two and say, is this what it's supposed to be? In terms of, the team, a similar use case actually is you could look at what BNP Paribas does. So BNP Paribas Real Estate basically has their team updates, their project updates in Spatial, where as they're developing a real estate site, they can look at updates and share them in real time. But then they can also meet with clients outside the organization, right? Without needing to necessarily travel to them to show them live in real time what is happening with the site that's being developed. And on the education side, right, we've even had customers come on recently, users from the university sector, which had never been our focus and actually is really quite new for us during COVID, who students are no longer on campus, who it's very difficult to teach someone, particularly in a seminar setting over Zoom or something like that, right? Where all you can do is put up a slide. And so and Charlie Fink, for example, started using us with his class at Chapman University just to have a more interactive educational experience with folks who can sit around and learn together and ask questions.
What's interesting is I know that some of these can be integrated too with traditional platforms like Zoom. So I do believe that there will be eventually an integration. But before we get to the questions, I would love to, just to let you sort of take over and show us exactly what this looks like.
Absolutely. And as I jump to my presentation, just on that very last point, we do have an integration with Microsoft Teams. And so integration with existing collaboration tools is extremely important. As a principle, we believe that working in XR or MR or AR or VR really needs to integrate with how you already work. And if it feels like there's a gap and it's a world apart, there's going to be too much friction for people to use the tools. But I will get into that. So I'm going to jump over here and talk about Spatial, which is how we think work should be. And when I say how work should be, I'm really talking about, knowledge workers. So this is probably less so, you just heard from the amazing Scope AR. It's less so about folks working in the factory and more about people working in offices or working from home, whose general tasks in the day-to-day are about, knowledge work and sharing knowledge. And so, hi, I'm Jacob. I'm the VP of Business Development and Strategy. So to dive into it, right, very, very directly. So we're a collaborative computing platform. So as I just mentioned, this is all about helping people that are spread across different parts of the world work together as if they're in the same room. And so, you've maybe seen some of our videos. You see this GIF that's playing right now. I think you're getting a sense of like what Spatial is. To put it a little poetically, maybe one of the ways we like to talk about this is imagine if the world was your monitor. You could sit across from someone, anywhere in the world, and essentially your hands were like your keyboard and mouse. That's the experience that you're getting when you start using Spatial. To put that into very specific terms, if you forget everything I say right now, there are really 3 things you need to remember about spatial. So the 3 big differentiating features are the following. So firstly, you create a photorealistic avatar in about 5 seconds from a single 2D photo. This is critically important because 1, it means that people have a very realistic sense of presence together. No cartoony avatars. It doesn't feel like you're with just like a blank screen. You feel like you're literally with that person. But then secondly, notice how I said 5 seconds and only a selfie. Getting set up in spatial is something that anyone can do. It doesn't require any complex 3D scans or any crazy home setup. It's literally just selfie and go, and your avatar is ready. So that's point A. Point B is productivity, right? What can I actually do together with other people once I feel like I'm across from them in spatial? And so the idea of the spatial work experience is that I have way more real estate to display information, right? I have my entire room around me that I can display information in. And I'm going from 2D to 3D. So I can obviously see not just 2D information, but I could see things natively in 3D as well. And the fact that I have my hands as the mouse and keyboard means that I could very intuitively interact, take notes, and modify information without any learning curve. So whether that's bringing presentations or videos into the space, whether that's sharing my screen from another device, or whether it's bringing a design like for a toy or a car or a real estate development and bringing that in and being able to take notes on it, mock it up, and instantly communicate and express what I'm thinking so that everyone can immediately understand it. And the third big point, and again, very important, and thankfully Catherine mentioned this at the beginning of kind of our session here, is that we're cross-platform. Accessibility is the name of the game with spatial, right? And it was hit on it even in the session before this, that it's very important that people can use whatever devices they have. So we're available on both VR and AR. We're on the Oculus Quest on the VR side. On the AR side, we're on the HoloLens 1 and 2 and the Magic Leap. But beyond headsets, we're available on your desktop and phone as well, with a web app that you can load and participate even without a headset. So you can get set up in seconds and join a meeting, even if you haven't gotten your headset yet. We'll also be available on Nreal, which hasn't released yet, in the early fall, and we're already doing some early experiments there with some of our customers, and that's a really fabulous low-cost headset as well. So I just want to focus a little bit on a couple of announcements we've made in recent days, just to kind of give you some of the news update with spatial. So firstly, as mentioned, we're available on a ton of different platforms. At Qualcomm, we were on stage for Qualcomm's big event recently in December. We showed off a live demo featuring Quest, HoloLens, their XR2 design headset, a phone app that we haven't released, all in there together, right? And so really all these devices work together seamlessly. We have Nreal coming soon, which is a really, really fabulous low-cost option. I wanted to talk about Nreal briefly because I think it marks a really pivotal moment in this industry where we go from thinking about a headset as being, something that's more involved that you wear in a head, maybe it messes up your hair a little bit, to being literally a pair of glasses that you could plug into your phone. And so spatial, on the software side, provides all this value that we're talking about. But now we're seeing the industry advance to the point on the hardware side where both the cost has come down and the comfort has come up. And that's going to transform AR from being something that, is an experience that people dip their toes into to a comfortable, affordable medium that everyone can start to invest in. We've been on stage with Satya, the CEO of Microsoft, twice. Once for the launch of the HoloLens 2, showing our work with Mattel. But then again at Microsoft Build last year, showing off our integration with Microsoft Teams. This is a really critical point to emphasize because I think I mentioned at the onset, for us, spatial needs to integrate with all your favorite tools very seamlessly. So whether it's joining from a phone or desktop, whether it's integrating with Microsoft Teams or OneDrive so you can load in your content, where it's already stored, it's really, or just share your screen from other devices. It's really important to make sure that there's seamless connection between how you're already working with how you're going to work in spatial. So I mentioned use cases a little bit, so I won't necessarily repeat myself, but we do work with some of the biggest companies in the world today, Mattel, BNP, Microsoft, Ford, Nestle. We work with a bunch of other Fortune 1000s that we're not yet announcing publicly. And we've had more than 30% of the Fortune 1000, at this point, basically 40%, in conversation with us, all exploring using spatial. So what's happening now is this idea of transforming collaboration and going beyond Zoom or flights has gone from, this thing that I think people were interested in as a future of work scenario to how people are actually working today. Because we've reached a moment where the hardware is cheap enough, comfortable enough, and software ready that this isn't some like proof of concept you need to do for work years down the road. It's something that can meaningfully transform how you're working already. And all our customers would attest to that. To close off the presentation, what I'm going to talk about is just a little bit about the company itself. And then I'm going to just segue into a little bit of our roadmap, and we can end there. But very, very quickly, just on the company itself. So we're based in New York primarily, but we do have some distributed teams, one in San Francisco, and even someone in Kansas City. During COVID, though, we're extremely distributed ourselves with people working all around the world. We're founded by the two leading 3D interface designers in the world. So our CEO, Anand and Jinha, met having given TED Talks several years apart. Anand's first company, BumpTop, was a touch interface that he sold to Google. Jinha actually created the world's first holographic computer. For that, he was ranked by Fast Company as one of the world's greatest living designers, ended up becoming Samsung's lead interface designer globally. And this is the project that has brought both of them together after those two respective stints to try and transform collaboration. We've raised $22.5 million. We just closed our A. Our investors include the founders of Uber, Instagram, Zynga, and the inventor of the Mac. On the strategic side, Samsung, LG, and Baidu, and Inovia and Whitestar led our last round. And the team itself is really a bunch of all-stars, right? Like Peter, our head of design, was key in pushing forward material design in Google Hangouts at Google. That's how he and Anand met. And the rest of our engineers really hail from amazing companies like Apple, Google, Ubisoft, Bungie. So really some of the leading companies building interactive experiences today. I'm going to really, for the sake of time, skip over the roadmap stuff. I think we talked about our features a little bit. I do want to focus on a couple of things coming really soon. So coming this quarter and next quarter, we're pushing beyond what spatial is today. You're going to be able to do even more in spatial beyond collaboration. You're going to be able to work in spatial in single player and extend your screen and essentially not need your monitor anymore. I mentioned that we're going to be available on lower cost devices. We're going to be enabling you to do more in 3D, right? So the idea of being able to measure and organize your information in whiteboard and just have all the tools that you'd want to work without the need for a conference room or to travel to make it happen. And we'll be launching an iOS and Android app as well in the coming months. So continuing to push forward in really big ways in terms of product. I'm going to end talking just quickly about pricing. So if you want an account and want to use spatial, we are available now. Just navigate over to our website, just click the Go Free button, sign up, and you'll be good to go. If you're interested in using some of our enterprise features, focused on security, integration with Teams, single sign-on, and things like that, shoot us a note at sales. We're happy to talk with you. And if you want, feel free to scan this QR code. It'll take you directly to our website to sign up. I'll leave that on screen for a couple of seconds as I'm talking here, and you can take out your phone and check that out. Or if you're more like me, maybe you just want to shoot me an email. You could shoot me an email for jacob@spatial.io or navigate to www.spatial.io to sign up as well. So with that, happy to chat with Catherine, answer any questions. Thank you so much for the presentation and excited to dig more into this conversation.
Thank you so much, Jacob. That was really thorough, and you did a great job plugging in. I mean, obviously, you're great at business development, and you did a great job convincing us that that it's very, very useful. And congratulations on the business that's coming your way. Somebody did ask if spatial was integrated with other platforms like Zoom. I don't think you said they were working on it. I wasn't sure if that was specifically one of the platforms that you're currently.
Sure. So Zoom is definitely an integration we're considering. Right now, we're focused on the tools that enable you to kind of bring content into the experience really easily. So like Microsoft Teams, OneDrive, Slack. Down the road, we're definitely going to think about an integration with existing video conferencing tools. Today, when you join Spatial through our web app without a headset, you can actually join the experience through video chat. So if you were in a headset and I were in web right now, to see me, I could literally share my video right into the headset. So it's a very similar experience to a Zoom integration. And in principle, we really do want you to not have to adopt tons of extra tools. We just want everything that you already use to work together.
Well, I also wanted to say congratulations too. I mean, it sounds like you have a real all-star team. I know that Anand Agarwal and Jinha Lee have done a lot of work prior to creating this. And it sounds like when was Spatial founded? How many years ago?
So we were founded in stealth in 2016, and we came out of stealth at the very end of 2018. So announced our seed at the end of 2018, and then announced our A a couple months ago in 2020.
Well, it's definitely an all-star team, and you've made tremendous inroads in terms of your market penetration. Talk to us about the size of capacity for any particular meeting, because that's a real constraint for many.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, I mean, we've done meetings with up to 30 people in headset using Spatial, plus more joining via the web. I think it's a very hot topic in the industry in terms of like how many people can you fit in. What I will say about the topic is that I think a lot of people, my mom always used to say your eyes are bigger than your stomach. I think some people's eyes are bigger than your stomach a little bit when it comes to capacity, because if you think about a real world meeting, if you have 50, 70, 100 people, it's usually pretty overwhelming. There are a lot of problems with having so many people in one room, right? So you always have to avoid the problem of just recreating the real world in VR and AR. We need to use these tools to make the experience fundamentally better. So for now, we're focused on anywhere from small meetings to like briefings around 30 people. And we're definitely exploring how to make those really big meetings good. But to date, we think that it's less of a technical issue and more of a design issue around how do you just make sure that people don't step on each other's toes, talk over each other, and have an overwhelming experience.
So it sounds like you're from a strategic perspective, you're trying to do your job better. In other words, communicating and collaborating in every day, rather than trying to create some large educational or concert or event space. Is that fair?
It's 100% fair. Yeah, I would say that you probably won't see, Spatial as the platform to host a big conference or a fair anytime soon. I'll say never, because we do, research to figure out if there's a way to do it in a good way. But right now we're more focused on that day-to-day work, meeting, briefing type of scenario. You could use us in education, but I'd say it's more in a seminar-like scenario where it's 20 or 30 people versus like a big lecture hall with multiple hundreds of people.
I was talking with a friend of mine who is a very successful developer, and he talked about how much he enjoyed working with somebody else while he was wearing Magic Leap and the other person had a VR headset, and that it was that flexible. And he also liked the fact that the avatars were quick to create and so realistic. Is that something that's unique to you? I mean, or how many others of your competition that are you aware of that are able to do something similar?
I mean, you should definitely not trust me at all when talking about the competition, but I'll tell you what I've seen, which is yes, I think those are true differentiators. We're definitely the only solution that exists that spans fully cross-platform. No one else is both on VR and AR and web. In terms of the ease of use, I mean, I would always say, by all means, go and try everything and make the judgment yourself. But I think the proof is in the pudding in terms of our team, that there just isn't really anyone else out there whose literal DNA is having built some of the most popular products you've used at Google, having built some of those popular TVs that you've used, having built some of those popular video games. Our DNA is fundamentally about making experiences that are super easy for anyone to use. And that's where our experience has been, building products that people could just pick up and use. So we like to say that we are, an enterprise-focused company with a consumer easiness DNA.
Okay, and one last question. When people sign up and they log on, how easy is the onboarding process? How do they learn to use all the tools? Because it sounds like you're adding a lot of features. How do they catch up?
So with 3 really easy things. So firstly, when they jump into Spatial, there's an onboarding room that you just jump straight into, and it teaches you how to do everything very interactively, from even how to use the headset to begin with, all the way on through to learning some of the more advanced features. Number 2, my team every day hosts a meetup in Spatial that anyone can join to ask questions and onboard and get trained on how to use it. So people from all over, it's actually funny. It starts as a training and then turns into a pretty social experience because people from different companies come together to learn together. And then thirdly, we have a whole basic support center that allows you either to consume, FAQs, documentation, or reach out to us with any questions. Of course, anytime we launch new features, we make sure that we send an email and videos always explaining everything thoroughly. It's worth mentioning that we did just make a huge upgrade to Spatial this week with version 1.6 that I think a lot of our customers have been saying has been pretty mind-blowing with new features. So what you're asking is definitely a hot topic in terms of getting everyone up to speed with how things change.
Well, it sounds like, with all the meetups suspended, and I had one too. It's the New York City Tech Creatives. It's about 3,000 people. But ordinarily, I would say we have 50 to 75 people live. And if it's, depending on the subject, perhaps fewer, but this could be potentially a way for people to collaborate even while social distancing. So maybe from a social perspective as well as a corporate perspective.
Oh, absolutely. And we've had some industry meetups actually approach us. And so you'll be seeing Spatial used more and more for those meetups where people, already have the headsets or just want to use their web browser. And for anyone who's interested in that, definitely reach out, because we're offering Spatial for free right now. We're offering it, we really want to make sure that this is easy for people to start getting on board and using for these wonderful use cases. And we want to make sure we're giving back to the industry and enabling anyone who's been disrupted thanks to COVID to continue doing their amazing work without having to incur some new cost for some new tool.
Excellent. So I'm going to bring David back on, and we're going to have a little bit more of a conversation. Thank you so much for David, Jacob. And it's been a lot of information in a short amount of time. Talk to us about how you're able to get your message out and cover all of the people that you need to in this period. How much have you learned from in developing your own processes while distancing yourselves?
Yeah, sure. I can go first. I mean, from our perspective, I feel like the conversations that we've been having over the last month to 2 months have really accelerated. Probably from what was going to happen 6 months or 8 months or 12 months from now to everybody needs it right now. And so, it's all about just kind of being enterprise ready for our customers. And we've been focused on that for the last, year and a half to 2 years in terms of being able to integrate with the solutions and systems of record they have, making sure that it's scalable within their environment, cross-platform. A lot of similarities, obviously, with what Jacob was saying in terms of their approach to being just easy and scalable to obviously what we've felt as well. But it's a bit of a different approach. I think in a lot of cases, organizations were approaching in the case of augmented reality from the perspective of it needs to do everything, and here's all the list of things that we need to see happen before we can actually get it to a point of being scalable, to saying these are just burning pain points and there are solutions there and we need to start with them now. So let's put them in places where they can be successful and start to learn and grow from there. So we're taking all of the feedback from our customers. We're aligning it to our roadmap. We're adding to our team very quickly to make sure that we can support some of those needs. But at the same time, customers are just like, let's find places to start right now. And that's great. I mean, that's what we're ready for.
And to build on that, I think so, in our own case, like this has been an amazing example of being able to build a product for yourselves, right? Like we literally use this for our own collaboration because now none of our team is together, right? I mean, we have folks spread everywhere from Canada to the southern US to the West Coast. I mean, so we use Spatial all the time to meet, and not all the time in headset, right? That's what's been really cool about having the web browser, is that sometimes you just want to pop in quickly and don't have time to throw on the headset, and sometimes you want the more immersive experience. So we're definitely learning a lot about, I think, the specific circumstances that lead people to prefer one type of experience over the other. And I think being nimble has been the name of the game. And also working in partnerships has been insanely important to this time now. I'll just give you some examples. Like Microsoft and Facebook have been sort of wonderful partners in helping even new customers get onboarded, who perhaps like weren't necessarily set up to use Spatial, but because they're working remotely now, are looking to use this type of solution. And obviously they didn't necessarily have the headsets already, or in cases where they did have the headsets, in some cases they're like locked in an office that people can't even get access to, right? And so working with our wonderful platform partners to get people new headsets, offering flexibility from a feature standpoint to make sure that it's easy to use Spatial under a variety of circumstances is the big thing. I'd say the thing that we've been pleasantly surprised with is that we always put a ton of work into optimizing Spatial, even for like relatively mediocre bandwidth environments. When I've demoed Spatial previously, I've demoed it even off just like a 4G phone or hotspot. We've always kind of optimized for that level of bandwidth consumption. And that's actually really played to our advantage now, because with everyone working entirely from home, there's so much bandwidth volatility. Like some people have good internet connections, some people don't. But by and large, it's all worked out pretty well because we've engineered for the lowest common denominator there.
Catherine, the one just one comment I want to make is about how we are, and this is, I think, similar to what Jacob was doing in terms of suggesting they can offer it for free to help people, and it's really the same thing. I think so much of the tech community is trying to support certainly the workers, the industries who are suffering the most from this, and right now, same with Scope AR. I mean, we certainly have a 90-day trial where people can come and just sign up for the remote assistance at no cost. We've supported and we've offered support for building work instructions for anybody trying to build ventilators to help with that. So it really is, even in Edmonton where I live, we have a YG Tech Cares community where employees are donating a portion of their salaries towards the food bank. But I mean, we're really trying to support those who are being affected by this pandemic. And so if there is anybody that's listening that's interested in how to start, I mean, we're making it extremely easy. In some cases, like I said, just no cost just to get started to help you out. So certainly, welcome anyone that's interested in learning more about that.
And I really do have to give Scope AR and the tech that David's team is building a shout out, right? Because if you think about what's going on with COVID right now, being able to work less with your hands or get more support when you're in the factory is extremely important. And honestly, just being able to more quickly reskill and bring people up to speed building new things. So many factories are changing over what they're building right now, right? So I give you a real props, David, in terms of what Scope AR is doing. I think the technology is more essential now than ever.
Jacob, I couldn't agree more, because that's one of the reasons why I was so anxious to have David on, because I had been looking for a similar solution like this for one of my clients. And when I came across it, I thought it exists and it's already up and running and it's been very successful. So I think one of the beauties of having this opportunity to share so many new platforms on LinkedIn Live is by showing that we do have the technologies to get back to business. There are people who have proven use cases that they can share with people to give them an idea as to how they've been used in different industries, and that's why I found this so helpful. One last question for you both is about augmented reality. Again, Jake, there was a clear use of holography in the imagery that you showed, and so it seems like that's sort of the engine that runs it in many ways. And David, too, your augmented reality. Give us a sense. Everyone's really focusing on VR right now, but the bigger picture is really augmented reality. Would you agree?
Well, so just to jump in quickly, so we've learned a lot about this over the last couple of months. So Spatial was an AR first product. We launched, on HoloLens 1, then to HoloLens 2 and Magic Leap. In that world, pre-COVID, I think our thesis was the primary way that people needed to connect was connecting offices, clusters of people in different offices needing to connect. And when you're in an office, it's extremely important to see your coworkers, see your other devices. And so being able to visualize information in the real world without any disruption is really important, right? And that's where the power of AR is. You're putting information in the real world. VR, in that thesis, we tended to think of as being more focused on training, except in some use cases where people were perhaps more spread out and they wanted to feel like they literally were somewhere else. I'm in a conference room somewhere else. I'm in a factory. COVID really flipped this on its head in a lot of ways, because actually the Quest has really risen as the most popular platform over the last month or so, because for really two main reasons. So part of it is the cost. It's a very affordable device. But the other part of it is people are a lot more comfortable working in VR when they're home. They don't have their coworkers. They don't have the sort of those points of friction that are introduced in an office where you really have to be on guard in a certain way. And to take it a little bit further, listen, I'm in a 1-bedroom apartment in New York. My wife, who I love dearly, and I have seen way too much of each other over the last 2 months. We have nowhere to go. Being in VR is actually an interesting respite where I feel like I am somewhere else. It almost feels like it extends the 4 walls of my home and gives me somewhere to go. And so we think that we really had renewed confidence that VR has a very meaningful role to play. And I think work is going to have changed very seriously after COVID. I think work from home isn't a temporary feature of this. I think the world has been forced into a work from home experiment now. A lot of companies aren't going to be able to go back. And so we see VR as a primary medium for collaboration, not just in the short term, but really moving forward.
Jacob?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You mentioned the telco use case, Catherine. We're working with one telco who's clearly said that this is not a temporary solution. This is permanent. It's changed for the better in the long run. It's just been really instigated, obviously, by the current situation. So I mean, I think what a lot of organizations are recognizing is that there's going to be a number of technologies that they implement. The architecture of those and how the stack aligns in terms of how these technologies work together is something that everyone's still figuring out. But that the workforce and the way we work is definitely changed, permanently as we move forward. So, in terms of augmented reality versus virtual reality versus mixed reality versus assisted reality, they all have their place within an organization in terms of supporting workers for whether it's training, communicating, collaborating, just delivering effective knowledge. So the key is to find out what is the right use case, and don't necessarily try and put one technology in for everything and say it has to do it all, because that's not going to be the case. Right now, we use all sorts of different technologies to communicate on a daily basis. And so it's not a matter of AR compared to VR. It's where does VR fit in the organization and where does AR fit in the organization? Who can use it in an easy, effective way? And that's the point where you start to see traction in whatever technology it is, where Jacob's made it so easy for somebody just to take a photo and create their avatar with no friction to that. That's when it becomes something that's scalable. And so we're seeing that now with augmented reality, which is obviously where we're focused in, is that it's becoming very easy for somebody just to turn it on, sign in and be able to use it. And that's really what needed to happen. And we're sort of at that point where it's possible now to do that, which is great considering the timing of the pressure that many organizations have.
Of course. I was really referring to the PwC article or rather research that they did recently about VR and AR, that VR is now sort of outstripping investments in AR, but that eventually it will probably flip the other way around when we have integrated headsets. But I like the solutions that you both provide, is because they're able to be deployed immediately across different devices. And so you've got that agility that people really need right now, especially as nobody has one specific device, or we haven't seen any specific device emerge as an industry standard. So tell me both about where you stand. You're both private companies. If anybody were interested in maybe taking a tranche or offering you an investment or partnership, how would they go about it? Where do you stand in your fundraising?
Well, I think, Jacob, you went through yours already. Feel free to recap it. I didn't talk about ours at all yet, but
go ahead. Yeah. You do you.
So we're similar. We're a little bit older company. Like I said, we started in 2011. We ended up going through the Y Combinator program in 2015, which was great. We did some seed financing. Did a Series A a little over a year ago. So we've raised around $15 million, and yeah, just building traction, building business. We did a small acquisition of a company in Israel. So we are about 50 team members right now. So we have an office in Edmonton, San Francisco, Tel Aviv, and then we have an EMEA location in Amsterdam, and then a few kind of scattered team members around the US. So yeah, that's where we're at right now. If somebody wanted to reach out to inquire about investment opportunities, I mean, we'll be looking probably a little bit down the road towards a Series B, but feel free to reach out at scopear.com. Okay,
Jacob?
Thanks. So yeah, as mentioned, we just closed our A, so we're not raising right now. We like to build long-term relationships with investors so that we know them long before we're trying to raise. So we're always open to meeting people, but yeah, we're not actively seeking funding right now. I'd say that, to some extent, we're always open to what I would call like strategic money, in the sense that, like, if it were linked to some sort of bigger partnership or something like that, I think we're always interested and open to those sorts of partnerships as well. But beyond that, yeah, we're okay on funding for now. 20 people based in New York, and just trying to build to solve all these problems that have been brought up from everyone in a contactless economy working remote.
So build. As we are on LinkedIn, I also have to ask either one of you, if you're hiring, if you need developers or any specific skill sets to help you build out your current capabilities. I'm sure there are a lot of people who'd be happy to know about it.
We are hiring, so we're constantly looking for talented developers, web developers, app developers. So We do have all the postings listed on our website at scopear.com. So if somebody's interested, please feel free to connect there. You can reach out and contact us through the website, and somebody will get back to you. But yes, we're always looking for talented developers.
Ditto. On our website, check out our job board. Especially now, I know a lot of people are hurting with what's going on in the economy. People are looking for gigs. So, definitely don't hesitate to reach out if you think that you're a fit for one of our roles. And again, feel free to use Spatial for free if it's helpful in any part of your work or search, as we're all figuring out how to navigate the economic conditions today. And that's it.
Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, and for helping guide us through these very unclear times. But I believe that the kinds of skills and the tools that you have to offer are certainly very, very helpful for businesses who are looking to get back to business and function even at a distance. So thank you so much for your time today and sharing your demos. I will be sure to share this with links, hopefully, to your company so that they can find you. And if you missed it on LinkedIn, we will be reposting this on VR Room if you ever want to share this or look it up at a later time. So thank you all for watching. Be sure to tune in next Wednesday when we have Henry Mason, Alan Smithson, and Rafaela Camara from Accenture. And if you need to reach me or you have any questions about XR technologies for future, please let me know. Until then, thank you so much, and I wish you all a good day and health.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
You.